Okay. I'd like to begin by thanking yet again so many of our friends and steadfast allies around the world for speaking up and condemning China for the arbitrary detention of 2 Canadian citizens. From the very beginning, Chinese authorities have made a direct link between the detention of these 2 Canadians with the judicial process underway in the case of their citizen, Madame Meng. We obviously have a fully independent judicial system that will continue along its way, and we condemn the arbitrary detention of these 2 Canadian citizens. We continue to push for more and better consular access and conditions for them, but ultimately we continue to press and act in ways that will eventually get them home safe to their families. Within the very first few days of the detention of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, Chinese officials were highlighting a link between the detention a week before of Madame Meng and the arrest of the 2 Michaels. It has been obvious from the beginning that this was a political decision made by the Chinese government, and we deplore it and have from the very beginning. We will continue to advocate strongly and firmly for the release of these 2 Canadians who've been arbitrarily detained. And again, we want to thank all of our friends and allies around the world who've consistently and continually stepped up to highlight that this arbitrary detention of Canadian citizens is unacceptable and deeply concerning, not just to Canadians, but to people around the world who see China using arbitrary detentions as a means to political ends, which is absolutely unacceptable, and we will continue to stand strong and united around the world against this choice of actions by China.
Prime Minister, I'd like to go back to the reaction from China and the comments from the ministry spokesman, Mr. Zhao, saying that you should earnestly respect the spirit of the rule of law. Do you think that China actively follows the rule of law in cases like Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor?
We saw in the very first days after the detention of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, Chinese officials highlight that there is an obvious link between the case of Madame Meng in Vancouver being arrested on extradition in our extradition treaty and the detention of 2 Canadians on security charges. They made those links from the very beginning and continue to put political pressure on Canada through that detention, which is something that not just we deplore, but countries around the world are speaking up to deplore, because this using of arbitrary detentions as a means to advance political gains is something that is fully unacceptable in a world based on rules, and we will continue to stand up strongly for our values and our principles. We've continued to stand up for Canadian interests and Canadian values every step of the way. In every conversation with Chinese officials going back 5 years, we have always raised human rights issues. We've always raised concerns we have around China's engagement both regionally and with Canada and in the world, and we will continue to do that. We understand that as the world's second largest economy, they have a significant amount of economic might and levers, but Canada will continue to stand strong to support our farmers, to support our producers, while at the same time defending the interests of Canadians abroad and in detention in China.
There are Liberal members of your party in this country, former Deputy Prime Minister John Manley among them, who say you should trade Meng for the 2 Michaels, that there is a process, that your Justice Minister Lametti will get a chance in the process to have some input and make a decision. And if Meng goes through the process and goes to the States or is released, you lose all leverage. And again, this is, I'm using Mr. Manley's words, you should do what you have to do. This is hardball politics and we should trade up. Are you at all considering that sort of thing? Because clearly the Chinese think there's still a quid pro quo that could happen here.
No. We're not considering that. Canada has a strong and independent justice system. We will ensure that it goes through its proper forces, and anyone who's considering weakening our values or weakening the independence of our justice system doesn't understand the importance of standing strong on our principles and our values.